He's a candidate to be the next president of the European Commission. But Catalan independentist leader Oriol Junqueras is in jail, waiting to be tried on crimes of rebellion, sedition and embezzlement, following Catalonia's unofficial referendum and declaration of independence 2 years ago. Junqueras can stand because he's not yet been tried. He heads the list for the Republican left of Catalonia and is the lead candidate for the European Free Alliance group of nationalist, regionalist and autonomist parties. The Spanish Electoral Commission authorised this video call interview from the Soto del Real prison.
I'd like to begin by asking how you're doing. What's your state of mind after a year and a half in preventative detention?
Well, as I hope can be seen from my smile and my attitude and my words and my tone, we are reasonably well. Although, of course, we'd be much better if we weren't being unfairly locked up in preventive detention. Because we're totally convinced there's no reason for us to be in prison, because nothing we're accused of is in the penal code.
Let's wait to see then what the courts decide, because criminal proceedings are still ongoing. Let's talk about the European elections. You're a candidate for the European Parliament. But I'd like to know if you really have a project for Europe, or if this is more of a symbolic bid to give visibility to the cause of the Catalan independence movement.
We always have been, are and will be convinced European citizens. One of the main proofs is that our political project has always been a project that thinks in terms of an increasingly strong Europe, of increasingly strong shared institutions, of a European Parliament with increasing visibility and a greater capacity to legislate, of policies for European integration in economic, fiscal, social and cultural spheres. And our record in the European Parliament shows it too. For example, we've always been part of the European Parliament's Green Group, which I believe, without any question, is the most committed pro-European and federalist European group.
You say you're pro-European, but at the same time you're also talking about building a new frontier in Europe. And this doesn't go down well in the EU. It's clear the independence project hasn't got the support of the European institutions or the member states. At the very least, this is relevant.
Democracy should always receive the support of democrats, and the ability of citizens to vote is an absolutely fundamental democratic right. And so we're convinced the opinion of citizens who vote must be heard by everyone. And we're convinced that an increasingly strong and increasingly integrated Europe is a Europe that must be sensitive to the fact that while we were defending the right to vote, someone was giving orders that people going to vote should be beaten with truncheons. When we defend dialogue and conciliation, the answer we get is to be put in jail.
You've been an MEP in the past. This means you know the European institutions well. How could you imagine the institutions supporting you? If you can't, some people will think this was about citizens being tricked.
What was certainly disappointing for citizens was that supposedly democratic institutions answered a people's vote by giving orders to hit citizens who went out to vote.
Let's stop looking at the past and look forward. Your party, the Republican left of Catalonia, did well in the Spanish elections, and it looks like Pedro Sanchez's socialists are going to govern in Madrid. This might be a good time for dialogue. Is that the way you see things?
We always believe it's a good time for dialogue. Dialogue, coexistence, mutual respect, integration, inclusion. These are values we all need to hold to at all times. So from our point of view, any time is a good time for dialogue. No doubt this can be one too. But in any case, it will depend on the attitude of the Spanish government, because from our side, it's clear we're open to dialogue.
But what I'd like to know is where the red lines will be if this dialogue starts.
We're not in favour of setting out red lines or giving blank cheques. We're in favour of talking, holding a dialogue and explaining our position. And I think it's imperative that every democracy strives to listen to the opinion of the majority force, in this case in Catalonia. Just like Europe needs to listen to majority forces in countries like Denmark, Slovakia, Ireland, Finland or anywhere else. What we ask is for our opinion to be heard.
Will you give up on the unilateral path?
We can't give up on democracy in any case, certainly not. It's impossible for us to give up on democracy. And in fact, it's because we're not giving up on democracy that we're in jail. And we won't stop defending democracy and the right of citizens to vote and defend their positions civilly, peacefully and democratically. And in any case, we've always defended a multilateral project, because in any relevant political project, there's always multilateralism. It always requires the participation of many different institutions, and Europe is a good example of that. We've always called for European institutions too to take part in these multilateral dialogues.
Pedro Sanchez is going to need your votes, or at least your abstention, if he's going to be able to form a government. Will you support his investiture?
We've always said that we won't encourage circumstances that might lead to a government that includes the extreme right, an increasingly extreme right.
You present yourself as a bulwark against the extreme right. But there are many who think that the Catalan independence movement has been one of the reasons that Vox, a party of the extreme right, won votes.
It seems to me a very poor argument, because in that case we're also to blame for the far right winning or growing in Denmark, Finland, Hungary, France or Italy.
But we're talking about the Spanish situation.
It's clear we're not responsible for this.
Finally, do you regret organising the independence referendum, the Declaration of Independence? Do you feel responsible for the fracture that currently exists in Catalan society? Would you do it again?
I'll never regret it. We'll never regret giving a democratic voice to citizens. We'll never regret defending democracy. How could we regret defending democracy? Would you regret defending democracy?
You're not answering me. Would you do it again?
Of course. Maybe you haven't understood my answer, or maybe I haven't explained myself as clearly as you'd like, or maybe I'm not telling you what you want to hear.
Muchas gracias, señor Oriol Junqueras, candidato a las elecciones europeas.
Muchas gracias.